Live streaming is on.
Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fjellman. Today is Feb 11, 2022. We want to thank Innate for helping us on his channel called Concerned Medicine. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Sabine Gruffat. Is that the correct way, Sabine?
Yes.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Well, how cool is that?
I don't know. It's not that cool.
The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
What is the best thing for a human being? I think being creative is one of the best things for a human being.
I like that. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
I like radio because I think you can do other things and still be kind of paying attention to it. And that can be, old-timey radio or, podcasts or anything like that. But I do like audio one of the questions I would say is like, do I want information? Is information something I need?
Well, that's an amazing question to add to my script, because the next question is actually, why do humans collect or gather information?
Yeah. Well, I think that's, I remember I once took a class with Greg Bordovitz, who's an artist and a video maker. And I remember he made a distinction between information and knowledge. And I think information, I think of as like data, facts. And knowledge is more how you interpret that data.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a good thing to just discuss up front before we get knee deep into this, is you put the words in the context you want.
Yeah.
Like Lily Tomlin said, reality is just a collective hunch. So we try to agree on what words mean. And so I want to just go back and reiterate that I'm a big fan of radio too. I think that's an amazing way to spend our lives.
Yeah.
And so, because in a way, this is a live radio show. And in essence, it's a live TV show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't have set, all these things going on. We're just it's called podcasting now. So it is radio. Radio is retrieved by podcast.
Yeah. Exactly. So I would say that the image of me on the video right now is pretty amazing, and people should be watching it, not just listening to my voice. I'm just kidding.
No. Well, here's the other thing. Usually, people with glasses, their laptop reflects white light, but for some reason, yours is a purple tinge.
Yeah, because I get the special glasses for computers. These remove. Yeah, they're supposed to be like healthier for your eyes.
What are they called?
I don't know. I really don't know. When I went to I always get everything possible, because I've been blind since I was 5. So whenever they say, do you want the anti-reflection? Do you want the computer vision? I always say, yes, I'll have it all. My eyesight is so bad that my lenses are insanely expensive already. So adding the special technology is barely a difference.
Oh, I like that. I want to get those. I love that purple thing. And the funny thing about doing these podcasts, even at night, when they don't have great lighting in their room, the computer screen provides the frontal light on their face.
Well, I can turn on a light if you want. But
No,
you don't
it's
have
good
to.
lighting.
You
Yeah.
don't have to. You know, I'm not in
No,
California right now. Sorry.
it is good lighting. But the next question, and Sabine, I'm glad you get what we're doing here. It's really to have fun. Do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more
What was the second part? More innate or more
invented?
invented? You mean in the human?
Yeah, so let me just clarify. Like me and you probably would agree that eating food is innate,
Yeah.
though there are breatharians and they claim they live by breathing and they don't eat. But that's like that's we would probably agree. But we invented ways to eat, uh, how to prep food. So it's again a fine line how we use language. Like, is eating more innate or more invented? Most people say it's innate. But
Yeah.
again, it can be expounded on. So this need to or this want, which funny you said, do I need, do I want information? Is that need or want more innate or more invented?
I think we seek out information. Um, that's a good question. I mean, it's funny because I think biologically we do need some kinds of information to survive, and I think you can think of our um, our social interactions require a certain amount of information. Um, so I would say that information might make us more interesting.
Yeah,
And in that way, it could be innate.
yeah. It's interesting too because I love a couple of these questions at the beginning have this more. Is it
Yeah.
more innate or more invented? I
Yeah.
know it's both. A lot of these questions, it's both and it depends. So
Yeah.
it's just a jumping off point to talk. It's not you have to. But this woman a couple weeks ago said the word more does not function in your question.
How does that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, because more just means like 50, in terms of statistics, it would be 51% or 50 point,
Right,
1%,
right.
I think, honestly, I think I answered the question in the best way that I could.
That's good. Do thoughts create emotion?
Do thoughts create emotion? I definitely believe that. And actually, this is an interesting thing, but I just did a meditation which was all about how to objectify your thoughts. So thinking about what is a thought? Is it words? Is it image? And that actually helps me a lot because I think sometimes thoughts can be really emotional, but being able to think of them as like objects in your brain helps you to um, have more control over what you're thinking.
Really good, because you must have ESP. You anticipated the next question.
I don't have ESP.
Can humans think without language?
Well, I think with images, I think you do, it's funny. I think about language a lot because, I'm bilingual. I speak French and I speak English and I speak a little bit of, I speak Spanish also. So actually I'm trilingual, but I would say bilingual with fluency in Spanish. And I think about, what thoughts do I have in one language versus another? And and sometimes when I'm dreaming, I have all of my dreams, I'm talking in French, whilst in other dreams I'll be, just an image becomes more important. And so I would say that the images are more like it's more animated. It's like still images that kind of fade, and less like a movie. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it. And we're going to get into this later, but next question is fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
have time. I mean, I feel like so often I don't know, I react to things, but it's not until, I've thought it over several days that I actually understand my reaction. So for me, time is necessary to actually, I mean, it's almost like my emotions react, and then later on my thinking brain takes over and says, what were you doing? What was that about? And I try to understand what was going on.
Your observations of humans, are they more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
I think feeling beings for sure.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately, everything is happening live and in real time. So it really, I mean, maybe the feeling beings are the ones you interact with, and the thinking beings are the ones that you read or listen to when they've, that the edited version would be the thinking being. Does that make sense?
That's definitely. This is what Chomsky says. A language is not just words. It's culture, tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language breaks down, when it doesn't work?
I mean, it's amazing because I think we live in a time where language has kind of broken down, where people get attached to certain words, and certain words mean more than they seem. And so I do think that language is breaking down to a certain extent, and it's because of people attaching more than, it's like because of what Noam Chomsky says, I guess, because they're attaching more than just the word to the word. They're attaching this entire world to it. And so you use one word and you inadvertently have attached an entire way of thinking to this word.
Right. So that's beautifully well understanding what's going on today. But when it breaks down, what do you do?
I think people get in arguments.
I know, but I mean, how do you, what do you suggest so we don't get in arguments? Like how, it's more like, how do you remedy language breakdown?
I guess the question, I guess what you're saying is how do you, it's incredible how many people talk and don't listen to each other. I think over and over, I realize that people aren't actually listening to me. They're sort of, decide what I'm saying in advance because of other factors, and then they try to fit, the words. So what that signals to me is that the words are not meaningful enough in themselves, and so we need other cues. So it's very dangerous to be out in society, Jerry. I mean, you never know how you'll be interpreted.
Yes. I love your word other cues. So what I'm getting from you is basically you try to read other cues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think, it's when if you're thinking about it in terms of language, which is such an imperfect form, right? Oftentimes I'll say something and then I'll have to say it 3 different ways, hoping. And one of the things that I've actually realized I started having to do now is that because I feel like people aren't listening to me or understanding me, I have to kind of like negate all other possible interpretations before I actually say what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's much longer. It's like a much longer conversation.
Right. Listening is truly an art form. And I appreciate you taking the time here because we're both contributing and listening, and it's like really fun. So these are 2 questions Alan Turing asked in 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
That's a good question. I think, at the root of that question is this idea of what is learned and what is biological, maybe, or chemical. If you're thinking about the brain, there's brain chemistry. So in a way, I think we haven't quite realized the effect that psychology and emotion and mood has on the biological body. So I think the soul is very important, and I think oftentimes doctors undermine the soul for the body or biological functions. So I think it's much more intertwined than we realize. And it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, what came first? And I think it's more like, my personal belief, I don't know if it's true, but my personal belief is that these things are continuously in conversation.
Like we call it, it's like a Mobius strip, or it's like a snake eating its head. But I agree with you totally. When I ask people, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings? You can't separate it. They're like connected, but we invented the word feeling and thinking, so we sort of think we can separate.
Yeah.
And
I
it's just
think that, and I think that there's a tendency too in our brains that to think that, you can't have both, right? And I once went to a bell hooks lecture and the audience was like, what's more important, race or gender? Don't you think race is more important than gender when it comes to like Black liberation or something like that to bell hooks? And bell hooks said, why do we have to choose? Why can't we have both? And I totally agree with that. It's a false binary.
False binary, yeah. That's
And I
actually
think people impose those a lot. They impose false binaries a lot. They make it seem like you can't have both. You have to choose. And that's one way to kind of undermine the argument.
Yeah. Totally agree. And it's funny because some of my early questions do that. It's almost like it's binary. It was a woman who was saying, well, the word more doesn't function. But again, I want to be a comprehensive awareness person. I want to get the big picture. But I think in order to get there, sometimes we can talk about both ends of the spectrum. So
I agree with that. I think that's actually a really good way to do it, because it's this idea of it's almost like it's a study in contrast.
Yep. It's I learned it through McLuhan's love of Pascal. He's a mathematician and a philosopher. He said, in order to understand anything, you have to know this end of the spectrum and that end and everything in between. Like, good luck. You said it was a study in what again?
Contrast.
Oh, contrast. That's it. Yeah. So the second turn question is, can machines think?
No. And I'm somebody who's like really interested in artificial intelligence, but I just don't think they can think.
Yeah.
I think people want them to think because then, it's external to the human and it feels more objective or more factual. But actually, they only can function with the data that we feed them, and the data that we feed them is our data. So I think that machines cannot think. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of what thinking is, right? I mean, they can do calculations, they can summarize, but can they come up with the thing? I guess the question is with, there's like these artificial languages, and I don't think that they can come up with their own like words, come up with their own ideas. I think it's always kind of mashing up or reorganizing ideas that you feed to it.
Yeah. I agree. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
At this point in my life, I'm pursuing happiness. I think meaning is overrated right now. I mean, reading, it's been a tough couple years. So I think like in order to get to meaning, I need to have more happiness.
Nice. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it? Or are we actually creating it?
Interesting. So someone I know recently had episode where they started to have delusions. And I sometimes think that the brain has a way of protecting itself from it's like if there's a thought that is too problematic that might harm you, I think there is a way that the brain will protect you from having those thoughts. So, I mean, that was what was interesting about this. It's almost like your brain can start to create fictions or choose not to see things or hear things or understand things in a way to protect you from a reality that might be harmful.
Yeah. That was good. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought. Unfortunately.
Sabine, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these.
I know.
But that one you got right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, I think thoughts can happen so quickly, It's amazing. You don't even realize you're having it. And then it's there,
Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Jan Rayner responded and said you can if you expose the tool. What new tool do you suggest?
What new tools do you what?
Suggest
in order to dismantle the master's house.
Let me just clarify. I opened some of the questions with few quotes. It doesn't mean you have to apply them. So it's more like, what new tool do you gravitate toward, or do you suggest? If you want to apply it to dismantling the master's house, that's
Um, so these are good questions. I wish I had a better answer, but I'm I'm thinking a lot about, um, you know, I guess I guess I agree. So I'm thinking about this in terms of museums, um, because there's a lot of criticism about museums right now. And I think there's a lot of people who work at museums that want to dismantle the master's house, but their staff and the museums, unfortunately, have boards with trustees that have a lot of power and aren't necessarily wealthy for, by being a really good person or something like that. And so, I guess my initial thought is, yeah, can you be inside an institution and still dismantle the master's house? And I think that's a good question, because my instinct is to say no, that you have to kind of eschew everything in order to dismantle it. And that's my personal, I think, instinct. And I think that some people think they can do both, but my thought is the only way to do it is actually to just get rid of the master's house.
wow, that's heavy. I like that. What new toy do you suggest?
Oh, a new toy. Well, I'm really excited right now, and it's really terrible that I'm saying this, but I'm excited to get a new iPad Pro because it has a 3D scanner.
Oh my God.
But I realize how problematic that is. But I also am excited to get one.
Do you mind telling me how much do they cost?
I think it's like $800.
Oh,
So
that's not bad. Wow.
it's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you need to 3D scan anything? I don't know.
Well, my friend's a pro filmmaker. He's had every best of the market camera for 30, 40 years. He says it's all obsolete. The iPhone 13 is better than any camera, lens, sound, everything. It's like, what's the point? I mean, kind of amazing.
I mean, the question, I guess, is when it comes to like photographic images or whatever, is like, what do you get with more definition?
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're getting more definition that the eye can't even see, then who are you making the movies for? I mean, but I think that the 3D scanning thing is slightly different because it's about virtuality.
It's exciting. I like that you said that. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I worry about everything, like everything. I worry about things like breakfast, and I worry about teaching, my students properly because I teach at the university. My biggest worry is I have this anxiety dream where I can't get to class on time. And every time I have this dream, it's the same. I get lost on campus. I can't find the room. I have to go up all these different stairs. And then I realize that I've already spent 20 minutes getting to this far off place. And now I'm late for class, but I still don't know where it is. And inevitably, and I'm not even in class anymore. I'm the teacher. But I have these anxiety dreams that are insane, about not being able to make it to class. And for some reason, I'm always about to fail the class too.
How many times in your teaching career have you been late for class?
Never, never.
Yeah.
That's not true. That's not true. Sometimes,
About
it's interesting to ask that question because I think about it a lot. Like sometimes if I'm 5 minutes late, I'm like, okay, I'm 5 minutes late, but I don't want to look like I'm rushing to class because then they'll know that I'm disorganized. But if I walk in 5 minutes late confidently and not out of breath, then they'll, the students will think, oh, this is normal, you know, this is how it should be. I need to make a grand entrance.
it's Andy Warhol said, "It's not who you are; it's who you think you are." So it's like how you that's who you are. How many years you been teaching about?
Since 2004. So what is that? 16 years.
That's pretty good run.
Yeah.
So
When you say it's a
McLuhan
pretty good run, is your thought that it should end soon?
No, no, I didn't want to bring it up too much, but I asked Bill Brown all these questions many years ago, and it went for 2.5 hours.
Oh.
He's like one of my longest interviews ever. And we really got into that, not really, but he was willing to tackle the fact that experimental filmmakers can't make their living being an experimental filmmaker. You have to teach in general, same with poets. And Phil Solomon always said, I'm a professional experimental filmmaker. It's like, yeah, you still teach. So what? You can show Sundance.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't mean to imply that. I think it's like all the power to you. If you love teaching and you can do your experimental filmmaking, it seems more pure. It's not like you have to make experimental films that will pay your rent. It's like, good luck.
Yeah, well, I think my next when I have my list of get rich quick schemes, experimental filmmaking doesn't make the list. And somehow I still do it.
So McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our invention so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about it. So it's like we don't like, earlier we discussed how language doesn't work all the time. So humans invented spoken word, printed word, electronic word, and it has these hidden psychic effects. But we just embrace language, and we don't even deal with the hidden psychic effects. So the question I ask you is, why do humans still ignore the hidden psychic effects of our invention, even though the artists are broadcasting to us?
That's a good question, and I'm glad that you have observed that, because I think in some ways what you're asking is, why do humans ignore artists?
Hello.
and yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess it's more like ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it might be too hard to face some of the problems that artists often kind of are a mirror to society and show some of the issues and problems that reside there, and nobody really wants to take that on because it's hard enough just making a living. And so it's like an extra weight that you have to shoulder. And so my thought is that people are really good at putting off the extra weight that they have to shoulder.
Yeah.
They might have a little bit of time here and there, maybe like 20 minutes on a Friday night. Like maybe they'll watch a movie on Saturday that's not, just a comedy or something. And then, but I understand it, it's for most of us, we don't have the power and the privilege to really deal with those issues,
Yeah. It's interesting because do you think artists have moral obligation?
No, I actually don't think that at all.
Yeah.
I always think about, I question whether artists should be moral at all. And sometimes I think that we're at a point now where the assumption is artists should be moral. And for example, when you submit, an application for a grant for a documentary, sometimes there's one of the ways that they decide whether it's worth making is what will the impact be, on the environment or on, poverty or on, these like very sort of practical things. And that's how, that kind of like linear thinking about the art and then the effect of the art as if like it's clear what the effect of the art will be, that that as artists we can provide the desired effect, and and so sometimes if you are immoral you might provide the desired effect. So if you're moral you might actually provide the opposite effect. People might be so disgusted and annoyed with you that it has the opposite effect. So I guess the way that I think about that is, artists might sometimes be immoral.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. Like Louis Buñuel has these street kids kick and beat up a blind guy Los Cuidados. I mean, it's like, is he teaching kids to do that? No, he's reflecting what's going on. But it might cause some kid go, I'm going to go do that. He's not. It's not his duty. But Darren Aronofsky, you ever see his first film, Pie? It looks like a student film in Ann Arbor. It's pretty good. But he became huge. And at one point, he said, we should all be performance artists because all the mechanics of film is killing Mother Nature. And I'm like, yeah, right. You're going to quit filmmaking because you want to save nature.
Yeah. Having said that, I mean, his one film, Black Swan, I didn't like for lots of different reasons, but not because it's not because it was necessarily immoral, but
yeah. But it's interesting because you brought up a thing that I would love to talk about for a second, and that's taste and aesthetic. Like my friend in music said, there's 3 T's: technique, theory, and taste. So technique, you can learn how to make it. Theory, you can study, French documentary theorist or Sigmund Freud or whoever. But how do you acquire? How does one acquire taste?
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that because I always introduce, like, I think taste is actually a great word because it's it's what you eat. And so I have this thing that I always tell my students, which is, when you're young, there's lots of things you don't like to eat. And, you might be grossed out by the idea of sushi, or you might, not want to eat vegetables. But then, once you start to taste these different foods, your palate becomes more sophisticated, and suddenly, you can't eat a hot dog every day. You want to eat a salad, you want to eat sushi, you want to have different experiences. So I use that, like the physical sense of taste, as a way to, explain why we might want diversity in our cuisine and in our cultural offerings, you know? I mean, after a while, it gets boring if you're only watching one type of thing. So I do think that, you know, you see people who are, you know, serious cinephiles, and their taste gets more and more eclectic.
You know, McLuhan said this thing, it's misleading to suppose there's any basic difference between education and entertainment. And then he goes on to say it a little more. He says, it's always been true, whatever pleases teaches more effectively. Now, what's your take on that? I'm curious.
You said whatever pleases?
Whatever pleases
Yeah.
teaches more effectively.
I mean, unfortunately, it's the truth. I mean, you know, it's when you're being practical, you realize that it's like anyone, you know, it's nobody wants to hear bad news, you know. So performance is definitely part of it, you know, capturing attention. But I also think that, yeah, you kind of have to, in some ways, you have to be optimistic as a teacher about, you know, possibility. And that can sometimes be really hard, you know. If you're like very self-critical, like I am, you know, you have to kind of release that and be, you know, be open to different responses from the students. So I agree with you. I mean, it's all entertainment, you know. And I've had dreams. Like sometimes I think, oh, I'm not very good at talking. I need to just videotape my lecture and then edit out all the ums and ahs, you know, like make it more palatable.
But how do you, you know, you said something there, it's interesting. How do you deal with that? You said sometimes, I forgot the word you used, but how do you do that?
How do you do it? I mean, I'm not very good at it. That's how I do it. I do the best I can, you know.
But that probably makes you more endearing, and you probably are your student's favorite teacher then, because you're more human.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you know, I worry about all kinds of things all the time. And one day, one of my students said that I was very calm, you know, as a teacher, and they thought that maybe I was slightly bored. And all I could think is how wrong this person is. Like, I'm like sweating, you know, you're just not, you know, you're seeing this face of calmness, but underneath is this like raging, like sociopath, you know, of anxiety. You know? It's like, I mean, you know, I mean, I'm glad that's what you see, but that's not how I feel, you know. But I mean, I think it actually took me a long time to like to teach. I didn't like it, right, you know. I was very frustrated in the first few years that I was teaching, and it's not until much more recently that I think I like it more and the students like me more because they can tell that I like it more.
That's great. Are you more afraid of new ideas or old ideas?
Old ideas and new ideas, I guess, both of them. I mean, I'm very afraid of I mean, some of the things that I think about is all these new technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning and Bitcoin and, you know, all this kind of um, stuff that that I think we're not prepared for. So maybe the new ideas are scarier because we're less prepared for them. We haven't really figured out how to handle them.
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
So I feel like I have no memories until I was about 5 years old. And I have no idea why that is, but sometimes, you know, in my family, my parents always say, "Oh, your brother, he has the memory of an elephant. And he'll remember, like, when he was a year and a half, like, I remember that milk she gave me. It was no good, you know? And I'm like, a year and a half? It was a blank. I mean, I don't remember a single thing from that time. I mean, you know, I'm lucky if I remember when I was 5 years old. And even then, I think, do I remember that because there was a photograph? Or do I remember it because I actually was in that body, like, perceiving this?
Yeah.
So, you know, unfortunately, memory seems like it's not my forte.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I think it's a blessing. I mean, you know, Bill actually has, you know, an active diary that he writes, and I don't do anything like that. And I have a relationship to, you know, my parents have a bunch of photographs from when I was a kid and, you know, the past, like our family years ago, and they're all in this piece of furniture that if you open, it all comes crashing down. So we make sure to keep the doors closed, you know, like don't want all those prints to like get disorganized. And so as a result, nobody looks at those pictures because it just seems like it would just be, you know, it's too much all at once, you know. And then I have these, you know, I have like iPhones that I keep. I have a pile of iPhones that I keep because they have pictures, but I never look at them.
Right.
Because they're just a pile of iPhones. So, you know, I mean, you would think as a media maker that I would have a better relationship to, you know, these memories than, you know, all this like photographic media that's just kind of laying around in my house, like collecting dust. But sometimes I have students that will pull out like everything, you know, all these photos from their past and whatever. And I'm always like, you know, like this is an endless labor. You know, it's just endless labor. But having said that, I did recently, my parents were, you know, in the 70s, they lived in Africa. They lived on the Ivory Coast. And then they lived in Thailand. And so their early like years married, they shot a lot of Super 8 in those places. And I recently, for they had their 50th wedding anniversary, recently digitized all of that footage and made a little video for them. And I saw the value of that. Luckily, there wasn't a ton of Super 8, so it wasn't overwhelming. But so I guess memories are useful. I'm just not good at managing them.
It was well put. My dad basically documented our lives on 8 millimeters, so there's 8 hours. We put on archive.org, so any of our relatives can watch it.
Oh, cool.
And when my dad was like old, my sister would take an iPad in and say, "Dad, here's your wedding," and he'd go, "Where did you get that?" You know, it was quite amazing, like time travel.
Yeah, and you know, because of who I am, I made sure they got really good quality like scans of this, you know. So so the files are humongous.
Yeah.
So they live on a hard drive. And now, you know, it's all about who has the hard drive. Where's the hard drive? Who has the hard drive? Do you have a copy of the hard drive?
Right.
You know?
Oh, just put one copy on archive.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah, because then any filmmaker can use it and go, I need a shot to Thailand, and you know why? Like an amazing document. That should be utilized.
Yeah.
So tell me someone in your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who had an impact on you, sort of like a role model, just briefly, and what was that impact?
That's a good question. So my grandfather on my mom's side was a German Jew who fled the Holocaust, and and like basically converted to Catholicism and married a French woman who was Catholic in order to flee, Germany. And then he had to he had to join the Foreign Legion and like go to war in the Middle East, also to get away from the Nazis in France. And this guy, he left Germany. I think he must have been 16 or something, and he had a profound effect on my life. He moved to France, and he's my mom's dad. But he started working. Like he started working at a very young age, just selling. Like he started a company basically, selling like curtain rods and things like that. And he was just like a very shady guy, like to get people to buy his curtain rods, he would say like, I'll just give you these curtain rods, and if people buy them, then you can order more from me. And he would put the curtain rods in the store, and then he would hire someone to go buy them all up, and then he'd be like, look how well they sold, you should order more. Like that was his style. Like his style was like, get things done. But he had a really good sense of humor, and he, most of his life he was retired, because he retired in France. You retire when you're 60, and then he lived to like 98.
Wow.
So he spent.
What's his name?
Well, his last name is Linz, which is Linz, and then why am I from suddenly?
That's right.
No, Robert.
Robert. Okay. That was well done. Now, outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact, just briefly, and what was that?
Outside my immediate family, huh? I mean, I guess I always, you mentioned Marshall McLuhan. There's a few people kind of on that level that like I think have impacted me. I mean, are these people that you have to have met?
No. You can name anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be early. I sort of say early.
Oh, you want early.
Well, it doesn't matter. Just say, who were you going to say? Who had an impact?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know now. I saw a Peter Greenaway film. Maybe this is not the answer you want, but
well, that's a great answer.
It's called Vertical Features Remake.
Yeah.
And it was like him kind of making fun of structuralist film. But I didn't know that when I saw it. But, it was screened during like one of my film classes. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. I don't know. I couldn't stop laughing. I just thought this guy, it like really got to me, And I remember that there was one other student with me who also like was cracking up, but then the rest of the classroom was completely silent. And I was like literally having a laugh attack because I just couldn't believe that this was what the film was. It just seemed like the biggest like FU on the planet.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, this is the best thing ever. And then I think for a while, I was kind of like, it really did impact me.
No, that's a perfect answer, because you're gonna get a Peter Greenaway quote open up a question down the line, because that was perfect. I highly Craig Baldwin once said Peter Greenaway's my hero, and I was like, what? So I like that was good.
So you like who Craig likes?
No, I think it was interesting because Craig doesn't like anything traditional. He doesn't watch any contemporary films. So to drop names, even though anyway is experimental. He's really thought of as an art film.
Yeah.
He's a feature filmmaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't consider experimental people at all feature filmmakers. If they made a feature, you know, that's all right.
Yeah.
But there's a distinct line in my opinion, and that's just my bias, you know.
Yeah.
Were you raised in a particular religion?
I mean, this is, you know, I would say I was raised Catholic. My parents would say we never forced anything on you.
Did you check out officially ever?
I didn't check in. I didn't, yeah, I mean, I was baptized.
That is a great comeback. Do you
I was
pray?
baptized, but I had no choice, you know.
Right.
And the minute I could choose not to go to church, I was like, thank you, whoever is up there, to make sure I don't have to do this ever again.
That's Louis Buñuel. Thank God I'm an atheist.
Yeah. But you know,
No.
in this country, people are religious. I mean,
Yeah.
in France, you know, the number of people who are practicing Catholics is like 10%. So, you know, you're culturally Catholic, but you never walk into a church. You know, that's the idea.
But Sabine, do you pray?
No.
Yeah. If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
I mean, I would like him to tell me that I can go to heaven.
Right.
Like, you know, like if God, because at that point you're saying if God exists, so he's talking to me, and I was wrong the whole time. You know, I should have gone to church. Can I still go to heaven?
Right. That's you're talking logic here. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I tend to think that evil uses people as a vehicle. I don't actually think people are intentionally evil.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from, because I do know people that are evil. But I mean, I don't know if I know, personally, but like, I know that people can be evil, but I guess I have a tendency to believe in that the people who are evil because of a past trauma.
Yeah.
That's my, but I have no proof of that.
No, that's actually the answer I get 90% of the time.
Really? People
Oh, yeah.
believe in the inevitable, like that people are trying
No,
to be good.
they believe, most people believe everybody's capable of evil, and
Yeah.
that there's people who act evil because they had something traumatic or horrible happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, or they're desperate,
Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of evil is just kind of not even thought. Like, some of the things that happen that are most evil are, the distance between the person perpetuating the evil and the person receiving it is so large that, they that it's hard to connect the two.
What you anticipated the next question is, how do you advise someone to deal with it? So I'll set this one up again with a modern thinking thought. Alan Watts said, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need it. So it's a lot of things. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you react to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I guess I agree with that. If you acknowledge the enemy, you empower them. but you know, if that's the question, but I guess overall, I would think that, you know, my first question is, how many enemies do I have? As you saying that, I started thinking about, where are my enemies right now? You know, like, how many enemies am I dealing with? And who are they? You know, I guess I'm not, you know, most of the day, I don't wake up thinking, how am I going to deal with my enemy? Like, most of the time, I spend most of my day not thinking about my enemies, which
Yeah.
I think is probably a good thing. Because once you like define the enemy, then the biggest problem is that you as a person become so focused on this person that, you know, it only makes you worse. And this other person doesn't even know you're thinking about them.
Has nothing to do with them. No, you answered that fine. Let's go on. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin over 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of it when I can go outside and see a real tree? Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just..."
I have to say that I agree with James Joyce. I would rather see a real tree than see a movie of a tree. So, like, I'm one of those unfortunate filmmakers that I like to make films, but I don't know how often I want to, like, I'm not somebody who wants to sit an entire day at a movie theater. I'm interested in making films. I'm less interested in just consuming them, I guess, or watching them, which, you know, probably is not a good thing because I do end up watching a lot of movies. But I have to say, I prefer being out in nature most of the time.
Yeah.
But the question you say is why, but the second part of the question is, why do we have to recreate reality, you know?
Yes.
And I think it's probably this question about, it's an editing question. It's like, you can pack it all in, you know, without any breaks. You don't have to put in the parts that are, you know, like in movies, they edit out all the stuff that is probably what most of our day is.
Right.
Just like having breakfast, you know. I mean, that's the genius of the Chantal Ackerman films, you know, where she shows all the sort of in between stuff that, like, most people would be kind of bored with, you know.
That was good. So what, just walk us through your career a little, just briefly. Did you grow up watching movies? And then you said at some point, what was the tipping point? You're watching it in movie theaters or on TV, and you're at one point you go, "Oh, I want to make those," and then you went to college to make them, and then how did you become an experimental filmmaker? Just briefly walk us through that.
Are you saying that's what happened to me?
No, I'm asking you what happened. Like what
That's the ideal story.
No, what's the
ideal story is,
yeah,
that
I'm
one day
asking
I woke up.
yeah, no, I'm asking, what was the tipping point where you kicked over? Yeah.
I mean, so I actually went to college to study painting.
Oh, okay.
I went to Rhode Island School of Design, thinking I was going to be a painter. And then you had to take, you know, a series of other classes, and I took a film class, and it was black and white, you know, reversal stock, Bolex class. And I didn't realize until I shot, you know, my first movie, and I got it back from the lab, and our first movie, we edited on a moviola. And it wasn't until I did that and I felt the film and I saw the image, and that just, you know, it kind of blew my mind. And I ended up being much more enamored of film than than painting. Yeah.
But who'd you grow up? Were your parents taking you to art museums growing
Yeah.
up?
So okay.
And you
Yes.
saw, who
Good
did you
question.
see painting wise that
Yes.
made an impact on you?
Well, my mom is, she is interested in art. And so we always would go to museums, but mostly for painting and sculpture exhibits, modernist kinds of works. So there was no sort of avant-garde kind of work that I was seeing. I saw, the who's that filmmaker now? Marcel Duchamp's films.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind, but that was way after. I mean, really, my definition of art before that was just painting and sculpture. So I've just been a very visual person. I mean, my parents got me one of the early Apple computers, and I was already drawing in this like paint program at a very young age. So I've always been, I don't know. those are my answers.
No,
I
that's
grew up.
fine.
Yeah.
Who did you see in at RISD, an experimental film that kicked you over out of normal? And you go, oh,
Yeah.
is there anybody early on?
Hollis Frampton.
Wow, that's a good start.
Nostalgia. Bruce Bailey. Castro Street. I told you Vertical Features remake.
Yeah.
And the other person, there's somebody else. I'm trying to think who it was. There was somebody more formative. There was a lot of animation that I saw. Jan Svankmajer and Yvonne. There are people there. Amy Kravitz. But that program was more documentary. So actually, it was like the MIT guys who are interested in like cinema verite.
You mean
I would
Penn
say
Baker and the
Somerset.
Maisels? You mean the Maisel brothers and Penn Baker and the
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and then showing me also Chris Marker, Sans Soleil.
There you go. Now you hit the
But I love Chris Marker. Sans Soleil kind of blew my mind, but I have to say that when you show it to students now, they really are critical of it. So
Are they really? Wow. Well,
yeah.
at least you're showing it. That's to me it's like a key film of all. But I have to ask you, just an aside, real quick. Have you and Bill seen a documentary called Beyond the Bolex?
No.
Oh my God. Google it and
Okay.
watch the trailer and then see it.
Okay.
Imagine one of your students come up to you and go, oh, I'm going to make a documentary on my grandfather. He invented the Bolex. And you would go, what? And she spent 16 years making this.
Oh, wow.
And
I have to see that.
it is mind blowing.
I mean, Bill may have seen it. I'm not, I'm not.
It's not that the film is like, it's not the greatest film. It's just the idea that one of your film students would go, oh yeah, my granddad did this.
Yeah.
And he actually was a filmmaker. His story is amazing. She got to find all his unseen films, and they used clips of them. So, anyways, a screenwriting teacher actually at University of Michigan told me a great film is when you clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. A great film is when you clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
I think intention is almost everything, right? Like, I mean, actually, that's a good question. So, it's really hard for me to separate intention with non-intention, because I feel like the way that I work presupposes that a lot of unintentional things can happen. But that's intentional for the non-intentional things to happen, right? So it's like controlled chaos. Like, I want there to be surprises. Otherwise, I'd be bored with my own making, you know? So I think, so it's hard for me to say what the intention was, because I'm purposefully adding non-intention into the mix. So is that intentional? You know?
Yeah. That's good. You're answering a question with a question. Sabine, that's what the series is all about. That's what
Okay.
we're trying to invent new questions.
Well, you should have told me at the beginning. I would have asked more questions.
Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much do you think of your audience when you're making your film?
Yeah. Well, I do know people who are more interested in audience than I am. And it's always weird when you show a movie and suddenly you realize, like, oh, there's an audience. I have to think about them too, you know. So, but you know, the other thing is, if I'm in the audience, I know what I'm thinking. So I guess I'm making films for other people like me, you know.
Yeah.
Because the people who are not like me, I don't know how they would feel watching something. So I tend to make things that challenge the audience, and I think sometimes that means that it's really unclear what, you know, going back to intention, really unclear what my intention is. Yeah. And that's purposeful, and I think problematic, if you know, if it, because it requires the people, you know, put a lot of work in, and that, you know, it's like going back to what you said. I mean, why do we, you know, why don't we listen to the artists, you know? And it's like, well, it's too much work to listen to the artists, you know?
Yeah. That was good. Matun says that everything we invent extends humanness. So clothing extends our skin. The shutter in a camera it's an extension of our eyelid. Like philosophy or religion, the extension of consciousness. What is the moving image tool, camera, whether it's video or film, extend for you? What humanness?
I think it's perspective. You know, Paul Virilio has some interesting writing about this in some of his books. I was thinking Bunker Archaeology, but also Speed and Politics, talking about, you know, the camera, the zoom, the camera zoom collapses space, and as a result, you know, the speed at which we can access a space is hastened.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, the telescope allows, you know, it collapses the distance between things that are far away, and that distance equals time. So you know, it's sort of like when you're traveling somewhere, you can either take the plane, or you can walk, or you can take a bicycle, or you can take public transportation, and every time you choose a mode, you're seeing an entirely different landscape. So I guess that's how I would think about the camera, is like, it's almost like transportation. Like, you can choose a different camera, a different lens, and it gets you there at a different way, and so it like privileges certain views over others, which allows you to see, the world differently.
How beautiful. It's an easy thing for people to say, what is a film camera? Then is your eye vision. And that's fine. But I love to get a little deeper, and I love what you said, because eventually you let McLuhan says that the film extends your foot because you travel. So it's like transportation.
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly right.
You reminded me of Google. When you go to Google Maps, it says walking will take 4 hours. Bus will take this, car and bicycle. And I love that they give you 4 options. And you can compare. But it's
and
also
the thing is that what's interesting about that too is that if you take the bicycle versus the car or the public transportation, you're going to ride through a completely different part of the city and see it from a different angle. You might see a neighborhood that you would never have seen before. So actually, these choices it's more than just, see. It's not the idea isn't you're seeing more, it's that you're seeing differently.
It's amazing. It's a magic carpet ride.
Yes.
So
and that
here's
would be the best transportation, by the way.
That is.
Yeah.
Here's how you anticipated. You do have ESP. Peter Greenaway said that cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers.
Yeah.
Our experimental, I know this is both, or it depends, but you just jump up. Our experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way or doing something completely different. Like me and you watched Tony Conrad's The Flicker.
Yeah.
Black and white flickering on and off for 15 minutes. He didn't really say, there's a story there.
Yeah.
It's a visual experience, but we might have a story go through our head.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
Well, it's good that you mentioned Flickr, because I was just a judge at a film festival where there was like a Flickr video, and I was the only person that was completely entranced by it. And I think that it's a physiological thing, or it's the phenomenon of it that I find, the lived experience of it, that I actually enjoy just perceptually, and I don't actually assign any stories.
Yeah.
I mean, my brain may go places, but I don't assign a story to any of that work.
Yeah.
I like it just for the sort of effect, like I feel like I like it because it has an effect on my eyes, it has an effect on my brain. I can feel the sound, I can feel the pressure of the air. Like it's completely, sensory. And it's not about stories at all.
Yeah.
So, and I actually, I understand the importance of storytelling, but I always think of stories as just a means to an end.
Yeah.
So I'm less interested in how you get there.
We're on the same. I think storytelling narrative hijacked cinema in 130 years. It's basically been 120 years of telling stories.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're fucking Abel Gantz or Martin Scorsese. They're all telling. Actually, said it. Marty's not doing anything that D.W. Griffith did different. They're just telling a story. They're filming a play.
Yeah.
So all the power to them. I'm glad.
I think that's the thing that I would immediately say too. Like my immediate, like when you said that, that's exactly how I think about it too. Is that for me, then it becomes more about theater. It's like character development and like, like, I mean, there's a way for it to be interesting. It's just, I'm not sure it's the story itself. Like the story just puts the people in certain situations, but I'm not sure that what's interesting is the story.
Yeah. And so let's say me and you are sitting around George Venue Poly 60 years ago, starting the Ann Arbor Film Festival. Should we be more inclusive or more exclusive? So I talked to Chick Strand. She started with Bruce Bailey, same time, Canyon Center. She said, I'm trying to recreate my 11-cent movie going experience. And I'm going to show a reel, a cartoon, and experimental film. Stan Bracken says, don't show that other stuff, just show experimental films. So, bottom line, do you think they should be more inclusive or exclusive?
I think exclusive. I mean, there's so many film festivals in the world. There's so many places for the other work to show, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, why muddy the water?
Yeah, no, that's fine. But here's the other follow-up is, what are the services and disservices of marginalizing experimental film? Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in '49. Regular people could start developing an aesthetic on experimental painting. There was no genre or my adherence that magazine took. Generally, privileged, entitled kids who develop an avant-garde aesthetic dominate experimental film. I call them rich art. Any comment?
My comment is, okay, so the first question I would say, the first thing that I immediately think of is you know, why is Stan Bracken's film so palatable? So, you know, part of it is it's aesthetics, and style, right? And maybe because it was more like painting, it reverberated more in a fine arts kind of way, and less like communication, less like radio, which we were talking about before. And so, yeah, so, and my instinct would be to say that what, you know, so when I hear that, I say, well, what was wrong with Stan Brakhage that he ended up there? You know, what did he do wrong to end up on the cover of Life magazine? You know, like for me, it's like a problem. It's not a success story. Gotcha. It's like, oh, there must be something wrong with what he's doing if it's like, you know, applauded by the current society.
Yeah.
You know, because the current society is so messed up. How could it be? I mean, I don't know. I know this is problematic what I'm saying, but I'm just telling you what I think.
No, that's all I'm asking. And you know,
I'm not saying that what he did was wrong, but it makes me consider it. That's my first instinct, is to be like, huh, that's weird. Why? What was wrong?
Why?
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. In fact, I recommend, did you read that book? All these questions I asked Jane Bracken, who's married to him for 30 years.
Yeah.
And did really a fascinating interview where she answers all these questions, but her book is amazing. Stan dictated his life for the first 10 years of his life story to her. And then she released the book 30 years later.
Wow. Yeah.
It's sort of creepy.
So, you know, that the other person, I don't think that necessarily success means that you're doing something wrong, you know?
Yeah.
I just think in this case of Stan Brakhage, it's like a particular case, you know?
Yeah. You know, I asked for 90 minutes and we're almost there. Can you go a little longer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you think the motive of the cave artist is?
The cave artist. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, some people say that it was like they're proud of their accomplishments, so they're showing their accomplishments. Other people think that maybe it's a how-to video on how to kill, like how to attack a buffalo or whatever it was. you know, I like to think that they were creative, and it was an outlet for their creativity.
Well, George Manupelli's mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Meeke says there is no self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
Is art making more? I know it's both. It depends. Just your English. Is art making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever culture or technology is done?
Your vehicle for whatever culture or technology is dominant?
Yeah.
What do you mean by vehicle?
You're like a vessel, like
a vessel.
like Cecil Taylor, the pianist. He says this stuff just comes through me.
Yeah. I think it comes through me. I think it's a vessel.
Yeah.
But like, I don't actually sit down and think like, what do I want to? I mean, to me, that's more like art therapy. Like, like getting your anxiety out in a drawing or something. Like, I don't like, that's more like Jackson Pollock, like I feel, and now I'm saying what I feel. And that's definitely not my process.
Can art making be egoless?
Can be what?
Egoless.
Egoless. I think so. I think, at its base, it's about a appreciation of the world around us. It's about observation and appreciation. So, at the base level, I mean, beyond the sort of ideas about like being a successful artist or whatever, but I mean, just as at the base level of being, creator, then of course it's egoless. Like, you are appreciating other things. I think it's a gift to have that ability to look at something closely, to be interested in the exterior.
Well put. So you've made films for years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me one major element that's changed and one major element that stayed the same.
I think there's still how I was saying about Peter Greenaway, that there was this like FU attitude to it.
Yeah.
I think there's still a part of me that's like that. I can't get rid of it. It comes out sometimes in like the way that I edit sound. It's just there's maybe a little bit of like prodding that comes out that way. A little noise, I guess, would be the other way to put it, like a noisy soundtrack. And then
that stayed the same over all the years.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Well, now you're anticipating the next question. Please, what stayed? No, that stayed the same. What's changed in your years?
What's changed is now I've been doing stuff with like video game technology,
right?
And building like 3D worlds, and that's become really interesting to me, to think about these virtual worlds compared to the natural world.
Yeah. So that's you again. You gotta have this because you anticipated it. Motion Feldenkrais works with healing and movement.
Yeah.
He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength. Normally, we're taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness turned into a strength.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that's a very difficult question for me. I mean, I I don't know what a weakness. I mean, I think, one way you can be weak is you can be overly empathic. Um, and when you're overly empathic, you're very sensitive. And when you're sensitive, you're not necessarily like in control of your emotions or your thoughts and feelings. And so I do think, you know, I think that sometimes like the sensitization means that you perceive things better, but it also means that you're more in, danger of being affected um, in a negative way. So I guess I'm thinking about this in terms of mood, like, if you're aware how people are thinking, feeling, and you're worried about what they're thinking and feeling in any given situation, you are more observant, but at the same time, that also leaves you, possibly like, more affected by the events, by
Yeah.
by whatever is happening.
Well, that was good. How do you find peace of mind?
I don't. I mean, this is like, that's the question I would like to ask you, is like, tell me what to do, what do I have to do? Like, how many drugs do I have to take?
Well, don't you guys ride bikes, or you go
Oh,
for
I see. Yeah, so exercise,
or yoga or anything like that?
yoga, yeah.
Yeah.
I try to meditate. I'm just the worst case scenario for a yoga person ever, but I'm trying. I'm trying.
That's beautiful. That's how you find peace of mind, by trying.
Yeah, that's what they say. But sometimes it's the opposite. The mind just overtakes you.
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite is Richard Mardoche said, "I don't think and I make love." And I'm like,
Yeah.
good luck. How can you turn your brain off? But you're doing the most sensuous thing a human can do practically, but your brain is it's like, could you just calm down and enjoy yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old,
Yeah.
what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I mean, you don't want to know.
That is a good answer. I've
No,
never
I
had
mean, I don't know if that's what I would say to them. I mean, I'm saying that to you. Like, I'm not I'm not sure I would have. I mean, I'm sure I would be terrible to my 12-year-old self. I'd be like, don't even, just end it now. This is as good as it gets.
You know what Martha Goldberg said?
No, what did she say?
She said, "You mean do I have any regrets?" And I goes, "No." What would you say to her? She goes, "Quit drinking all that schnapps."
Yeah. I was
White.
okay. Yeah, 12-year-old, I was still okay.
So just a few more. This has been really fun, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions. So just off the top of your head, in a couple words.
I feel like you're like putting my brain into like a little exercise machine right now. It's like 5 quick, whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this has been fun because people know that I give them time to be quiet, to think, and it's a casual conversation. It's fun, but this is just a little exercise in the flip reversal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here it is. Who started it all?
Who started it all?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess God.
Are we going to make it?
No, we're not.
Where do we put it?
Where do we put it? We put it in the closet.
Who's cleaning it up?
Me.
Is it serious?
No, it's a total joke.
You are lucky. I mean, Bill's lucky. How many years have you guys been together?
Why is he lucky? Which one's luckier? First you
Well,
said I was lucky. Now it's he was lucky.
No, I think you're both lucky. I didn't mean to insinuate. I think you're,
Since 2007.
2007. How do you explain your longevity?
I don't know, like that's a good question. I mean, we don't fight very much. I think we're both like very similar interests. I don't know. I mean, none of these sound like convincing to me as I'm telling you. I'm thinking these are not like the convincing answers that he needs right now. That's a hard, I think about that a lot, I think it's mutual respect.
That's good. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or up?
That is so funny that you asked me this because this is actually a thing for me. Like, I have to have it come over, otherwise I think it's bad luck.
Nice. You gave the reason.
So I actually, like, this is something that I purposefully do.
Yeah.
And if it's done the wrong way, I change it back because I think it's bad luck. So I'm superstitious about this particular thing. And I can't believe you actually asked about that.
Well, it's funny because I asked it because all my questions seem so serious and I want to be playful. But I usually follow up with why 95% of people say over.
Yeah.
And my friend has a Xerox of a patent next to his in 110 years ago was invented over.
Oh.
But people actually have reasons why it should be the other. So. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
I've never had and I never want.
And it's good.
It's good by whose standards?
That is good. You're asking by your standard.
It's good but I don't want it. That's never going to happen. I mean, if it's good, I want it. There's no question.
Okay,
I'm not like at this point in my life, I'm not into masochism at all. Like, if it's good, I want it.
Cool.
Like, I love chocolate. I'm gonna have it.
Dark or
I guess cigarettes. I don't smoke. Cigarettes I don't want. I know they're good, but I don't want them.
Dark or milk chocolate?
Dark, very dark. I like 70%.
Nice.
The other stuff is not chocolate.
I agree. I'm dark chocolate person too.
Really?
Okay, we're winding down. We got 3 more. This has really been fun. Thank you. Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is secret goal.
Yeah.
But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this. What's it really all about for you?
The hiding?
No, just life. See, it's a stupid question because it's implying art is hiding and telling.
Yeah.
But it's almost like implying what is life all about for you. But you can put it in the context you want.
Yeah. I mean, life is one big. I mean, I'm starting to think that it's just one big joke, that that's what life is like, and that the best thing is to take it as, least seriously as possible, I think.
Good.
Like, I think sense of humor is really important. And when people are too serious, I don't trust them.
Yeah. Gurjeet Sufi said, laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no.
Yeah, exactly.
And Zappa said, I'm really serious about being not serious.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a good one.
Yeah. And, when bad things happen, I often laugh in response.
Yeah.
It's like my way of handling it,
Good. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, I don't know if it inspires me, but for some reason, so one thing that people talk a lot about is like Facebook and social media, as like a cultural shift. And I should have realized this sooner, but I guess I was kind of an idiot and I didn't perceive this. But for a long time I was using Facebook and I had this idea that like the news feed was like a community, right? Like there are these people I know and they're all on this news feed. And for some reason, it never occurred to me that nobody else has the same news feed as me. And that's when I realized that actually I'm alone in this. I'm the only one who sees this news feed. And when I realized that like nobody shared the news, it's not like it's a public forum because nobody else is experiencing what you're experiencing. It's like we're all thinking we're all together, but we're actually all in our own little isolated world. And once I realized that, it actually changed my behavior on Facebook a lot because I realized that like I was just alone in this, it's just a very strange thing. But and for some reason I feel like an idiot because I feel like it's like, of course it's not, of course you're the only one on, of course nobody else has your news feed. Like, but it's like, it's so personalized that absolutely nobody else has the same view that you have. And I don't know, it seemed like a big deal to me at the time.
Well, no, it's good that you are trying to get deeper to understand what Facebook does and how it shapes our behavior. Because most people do this with all the new technologies, they embrace them and they don't really try to even investigate how it's shaping their behavior. They just embrace it. Like we all embrace cars. Nobody goes, I'm not going to have a car. Or, I mean, it's just normal.
Yeah.
And I don't do Facebook. My wife does. But I live in the Facebook world. I got like 2 or 3 Facebook pages, but I don't go to them. And that doesn't mean I like it, dislike it. It's just like time management. I don't want to invest my time.
Well, now that we said those words, like maybe our YouTube video will be up more in the search results.
You mean this? How many views we'll get?
I'm saying like.
You mean
this? If you name this interview, what we think about Facebook, or like.
No, that's exactly. No, I was going to say to you, it's funny you brought that up because what most people go, what's the cultural shift you see developing today? They all go, everybody's more tolerant with different people with diversity. Whether it was sexual preference or your skin color, that's what everybody says. But you said something that really resonates with Kuhn. He says, Americans go outside to be alone, go inside to be together. So, he was talking about we go inside to watch TV together.
Yeah.
And it's completely changed me and my events for 2 years because of Zoom. So, all my interviews were for years, for 38 years, were, well, Bill, I'll see you in Ann Arbor, but I interview you there on this day. So now it's like no one has to drive anywhere. I can, I interviewed Bruce McClure, who I was trying to interview for 20 years, and he just sits in his house and hits a button, and we get to interview. So I feel that Zoom is better than humans together. Now, and literally, I know it's good to be with a human, and I still do that on my bike ride every day to the boardwalk and watch the suns. I'm lucky. But all my events, people are more attentive and they're more present.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing phenomenon. So, I mean, I don't know. It's changed how you teach, right? Have you had to teach online for 2 years?
No, I'm teaching in person now.
But how long did you have?
I did teach online and I hated it, but I feel like because I'm, good with technology, it was easy for me to take the step, I guess.
Right.
Compared to other professors, I didn't struggle as much,
Right.
I mean, because I teach in a department where there's printmaking and painting and, and so video and animation, it was a little bit more connected to the computer already,
Yeah. Okay, Sabine, last question. Thank you. I hope this can go on forever. I hope I see you in Ann Arbor this year. Or
yeah, are you going?
Yeah, 60th year. I'm going to give a presentation on Thursday at 1:00. So
Great.
I hope you and Bill will come there and heckle me. Here's the last question. What gives you the most optimism?
I mean, I feel optimistic when I'm making art. You know, I feel like I'm continuously discovering things and learning, and discovering is what makes me the most optimistic.
Yeah. I agree. That's fun. We've had a good time. I hope you did. I had a really good time. Thank you so much, Sabine. And I hope our discussion will not end here. We can keep talking forever and ever.
Okay, Jerry, just send me a link, okay?
I will send you the link really soon. It won't maybe take a day, but within a day I'll send it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
It'll be called How Facebook Has Fucked Your Life Up. No, I'm not changing.
Yeah, and they have to watch the whole thing to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.